Oh, guys, good, you hear? I am so excited. Guess what? I hope this isn't about your podcast again. Why, did you finally listen to it?
Da-da-da-da, 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 the Groomer Next Door production. And now a message from our friends at Fetching Food.
The 1970s and 80s had Elbow, Gravy Train, Purina, Meow Mix, and Bell Bottoms. You've changed your clothes, now change how you feed your pet. Like Bell Bottoms, kick the kibble and join us in the 21st century with the healthiest diet for dogs and cats. Feed naturally, feed raw, feed Fetching Foods.
Groomer Next Door podcast.
I'm from Missouri. That's all I know.
Hello, pups and kittens, and welcome to another fun-filled and informative episode of the Groomer Next Door podcast. I'm your host, Chris Green, and joining us this week is Gary and Dakota from Raw Dog, Hawaii, all the way from Hawaii itself. You know, I just say we take a moment, say, let's just go to the beach and not even have a podcast. Okay, all of you want to have a podcast. All right, well, I guess we're going to do the podcast and not go boogie boarding. Well, then in that case, let's go into our fun fact of the week. So because it's Hawaii, I thought, well, I'm going to kind of center around Hawaii and a little bit of fun facts from Hawaii, and that is the state of Hawaii consists of 8 main islands and the big island of Hawaii. Hawaii is the only state that grows coffee, which I have to thank them because if it wasn't for coffee, I don't think I would wake up in the morning. And Hawaii is the most isolated population center on the face of the earth. Hawaii is 2,390 miles from California, 3,850 miles from Japan, 4,900 miles from China, and 5,280 miles from the Philippines. So if you really want to be away from people, I think Hawaii is a good place to go. So obviously someplace I really should go. Of course, a lot of people have the same idea because a lot of people are on the islands. Well, by that sound, Gary and Dakota are about to join us. So with that said, welcome Gary and Dakota from Raw Dog, Hawaii to the podcast.
Oh, hello. Hold on a sec. Dad, we have a guest on the podcast.
All right, this week on the podcast, we have made our way all the way to Hawaii. It is, something that I really honestly could say I wish we could just sit down on the beach and enjoy a nice drink and watching the ocean, but instead, we are going to talk to 2 amazing people that are going to tell us a great deal about one of my favorite subjects, which is nutrition. And they have a company called Raw Dog Hawaii. We have the founder, Gary, and we have Dakota, who is the director of customer experience. Thank you guys for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure. Well, you know what? I'm kind of curious. How's the weather right now?
It's always perfect in Hawaii. So since it's summertime, it's about 82. In the wintertime, it's about 81.
Oh,
so we're in summer right now.
I can honestly say, being out in the Midwest, once it gets snowing, I wish I was back in a tropical environment because, boy, I do not like snow. I could definitely go with that.
Well, we can always reschedule the podcast for when you're here.
Well, I keep saying that 37 years I'm going to actually make it, and I've yet to make it. In my 37 years of existence, I've yet to make it. And I keep saying I'm going to do it, something always comes up. Gosh, I wish I could just break away. Maybe one day I'll do a show out there, and it'll just
That's perfect.
Well, Gary, I'm going to start with you because you are the founder, so I'm going to say the one thing I always say to everybody, and that is tell us your origin story.
Raw Dog Hawaii started because I think like most raw pet food companies or most homemade pet food companies, because of the dog, we severe allergies, the licking and chewing the feet, the hot spots, the rashes, the shedding, the, just overall quality of life. And a friend of mine in Canada, Victor Singh, he had put his dogs on a raw food that was produced in Canada, and I'd always wondered how his dogs always seemed to look great and didn't have the symptoms that my dog had. And he explained to me a little bit about raw food, and of course I didn't get it. I didn't understand it. It seemed like, magic. And so I took his advice and I started feeding my dog Bear raw, who was a black Chow Sharpei. And within just a few days, the licking and chewing the feet stopped. Within about a week, the ears cleaned up, and over the course of a month, he turned into a completely different dog. When we got to Canada, he was 14, I think, 14 or 15. And so we started from Texas, went to Canada, and then moved to Hawaii. He actually lived to be 17 years old. But when I came to Hawaii, I couldn't find I couldn't find any locally sourced raw pet food. There were, obviously kibbles that were an option. And so I just started making it for myself using all local sourced proteins and vegetables. And, as soon as you start doing that, friends and family want it and neighbors want it. And, before you know it, you are moving into a kitchen and you're making raw dog food. And so it started from there, and it turned into marrying my passion of food and cooking and dogs into the dream job I think I'd always wanted. So, it worked out really well for us here.
It's funny how you don't realize that working with dogs and cats and different animals is the passion that you had. And then all of a sudden you start doing it, you go, why wasn't I doing this all my life? I go through this all the time, so I get it.
Yeah, food and dogs, together, and I think, cooking like in a restaurant and dogs. So I think that's where people have the disconnect. They never really think about what a dog really needs to be eating and what its ancestral diet is. So when they make that kind of connection, that's when it clicks. And it just takes some of us longer than others to have that click moment. But once you do and realize what the potential of raw food is, it literally changes dogs and people's lives. So you see the feedback very, very quickly in dogs, and the humans, their caretakers, become just as hooked as the dogs do, because they know their dog's getting a much higher quality of life now.
Very true. And, I always call it the aha. And every story, like you've heard different episodes. A lot of the stories start with my dog was sick and unfortunately passed. And, they always, I'm in the same boat here where luckily mine hasn't passed away, but it's my dog had allergies, my dog had this issue, that issue, and it was on kibble because I thought that this high-end kibble was the best, and it turned out to really be no different than the rest. And then once you get that aha moment and you start actually preparing your dog's food, you realize, oh my gosh, I've been doing it wrong this whole time. Some people get it, some people will stay with the bargain basement kibble forever. And it's just one of those, oh my gosh, how can I just, give you that aha moment?
Yeah, we've just found that you can't convert everybody, but you try to educate as many as you can. And I think one of the really cool things about doing it here is Hawaii is a very different style of doing business, and it's really strongly geared towards sharing personal relationships The local farmers and ranchers who take an enormous amount of pride in what they do. And because of all our volcanic soil, when we sent our foods off for nutritional testing, I literally could not believe the results we were coming back with from a nutritional profile standpoint. When we were comparing it to, just feedlot type food that you find in a store, that food comparably was sterile compared to what we were finding here. I mean, our vegetables were almost, twice the vitamin content, our beef, twice the vitamin and mineral content. It was astronomical. So we even see more benefit to the dogs because I don't think this environment really exists and the type of soil that we have exists anywhere else in the world. So we have people wanting us to come to the mainland or ship to the mainland frequently. And, in our expansion plans, we're just like, if we go there, the food quality, because of the source products that we use, aren't going to be as good as what we have here. So we support small local farmers and ranchers here. It's important for us to do that. And having those personal relationships, knowing them, being able to see their ranches and their farms, you develop a level of transparency in your food, and they get to understand what you're doing. You're doing a value-added product based on what pride that they're putting into their product. So there's a substantial amount of awareness in the Hawaiian Islands about what we do. And it's an island or a chain of islands, so everybody knows everybody, and they know how you do business. So it's imperative for us to do business the right way and make sure that we're ethical and transparent about everything we do as well. So we're very proud of our farmers and ranchers, and literally could not make the type of products that we do without their friendship.
And it would be like living in a small town, even though you're kind of separated by a little bit of water. It's the same thing. I mean, you guys are really connected in so many ways, so I can totally see that. Well, we also have Dakota, and she's probably like, don't put me on the spot. But tell us your origin story. I'm sure everybody wants to hear from you and hear what you have and your experiences and what you bring to this conversation.
Yes, of course. So I had met Gary back in 2013 at a farmer's market. I met him this was the first farmer's market we had started when first starting out. And I had never heard of raw food before for dogs. So I meet Gary, and, he's claiming I can fix your dog's allergies. We immediately hit it off, and I started working with him. And one of the first memories that really sticks out in my mind that made me fall in love with this product and the company, we had been working with a few dogs at a shelter here on the island. So some of the dogs that had, you could say, the worst skin issues with severe mange, hair loss. So we picked a group of dogs and we fed them our food for, I believe, maybe 6 weeks. So
6 months. 6 months.
6 months. So we had one dog in particular that sticks out to me, Neptune. So this dog had basically lost all of her hair, severe mange, and within 5 weeks on our food, she had regrown all of her hair back. She looks like a completely different dog, and she got adopted. So to me, to be able to see our product, affect a dog in such a positive way, where that dog would have never had an opportunity of going to a new family, in a matter of 5 weeks, a completely different dog who has a great home. To me, that was just one of the most amazing moments, and I'm in love with dogs. They're my favorite. So to be able to help dogs, in that way and so many other ways, that's what I love about this company and our product. And Gary, he's also so passionate about it as well. But after I had met him, I started taking over our farmers markets and building connections with our customers that we still have to this day. We have customers that we've had for 5 years now who have had their dogs on this food the whole entire time, and their dogs do so well. And so for me to be able to build those connections with our customers and to have those relationships with them for years now is really special to me. So there's a lot of different things about the company that I love.
It's always funny because, again, there's always that kind of, I didn't know anything about it, and then once I did, I fell in love with it. Now, when you first heard about raw feeding, was it kind of one of those, I need to look online and start doing the research and then become addicted to it that way, or was it something that was a little bit longer in process?
Well, for me, I was so lucky to have Gary. Gary was my internet. He was my source of knowledge. He has taught me everything I know. So, I had recently got a kitten after I started working with Gary, and I started her on the food right away. And then a few years later, got my own dog, and he's been on our food for years now. And so both of my animals are on the food. And, I've done research, of course. I've taken, different things that I can to expand my knowledge on it. But really everything I've learned came from Gary. So I feel very lucky to, have him as my source for basically everything.
It does help. I remember the first time.
It does help.
First time I heard about raw feeding, I was just like, is this really possible? And of course, you first hear about it for the very first time, you're like, but that's, you're looking at salmonella, you're looking at all these problems, you're thinking, I'm not going to put my dog through this, or even cat. And once you do the research, and in your case, you had a great teacher right next to you, where you could actually find out all the information and not have to deal with some of the bogus stuff on the internet, because, of course, as we know, internet has a bunch of lies and a lot of truth. So that helped you out exponentially. So you're very fortunate to have had such a good mentor.
And that's something as well. I'm very, very lucky for Gary, but as well, we have a lot of customers who come to us and they want to get started on raw food, and the internet can be so overwhelming in so many ways. You read so much information and you have no idea where to start. So right now, when we have customers come to us and they're interested in our food, our job is to be able to explain it to them in a way that doesn't overwhelm them and makes them feel comfortable starting on our product. So just how Gary did that for me, that's what I want to be able to do with everyone moving forward.
And Gary, you were going to say something?
Oh, I was going to say that as soon as I met Dakota, I realized I need to steal her from who she's working for and make sure she never works for anybody ever again, and treat her like gold. So she has so many fans at farmers markets that if she skips a week or the phone call accidentally comes to me, they're like, "Oh, hi Gary, is Dakota available?" So she has quite the number of groupies, I think, that follow her at farmers markets and know her and trust her implicitly. For me, learning this was, seeing it, not understanding it because it's not what I had been told or taught. Mm-hmm. And, even though I grew up with my grandmother on a chicken farm who fed our dogs chickens, I never really put two and two together because for most of my life, kibble was just what you fed. If you had a dog, you went to the store, you bought this bag of stuff, and you brought it home, and that's what you fed your dog. And after Victor had shown me about raw food, kind of like Billy Hoekman from Answers Pet Food, I wanted to know why. Because, you see it doesn't really make sense. So I wanted to know why it's doing what it's doing. So the internet, you're right, it's kind of a minefield of useful, sort of useful, and disinformation. So you have to dig beyond the story. And so you find somebody who makes a statement, and people want to see it backed up with science to make sure it's not just an opinion. One of the problems with raw food research that I have found is it's just now starting to exist, because who's going to fund the study with a bunch of dogs about raw food and how that benefits them unless you're a big university or you're some large manufacturer? I mean, the money's got to come from somewhere to pay for the study, and why pay for a study on an ancestral diet that's been around 1 million years and we know works? So it was kind of a catch-22, and I think Dr. Barbara Royal and Dr. Karen Becker and other holistic veterinarians that said things and had videos about the whys, or wrote articles about why something works the way it did, just made me ask more questions. So over the years, that's how I got my information, was looking past the story and trying to find out why that is either true or not true, and if it is true, why is it true? So you have to learn a little bit about dog physiology, you have to learn about bacteria and parasites and dogs' digestive systems and lactic acid. I mean, it's a never-ending rabbit hole of learning, and I think that's what attracted me to it, is have the need to learn, and loving dogs, I always want to find ways to help them with whatever issues they have. So that continues today. When a customer emails something and it doesn't make sense, I do my best to try to find the answer, even if it doesn't have to do with our food. So.
And it always starts with, what are you feeding your dog? Don't know why, but it always has to. At least that's it for me.
I usually, ask the question I ask. Well, if you back up to how a customer gets to the option of raw food, we did the case study that Dakota was referring to was at the Oahu SPCA, which is an animal shelter here. It's a no-kill shelter, and I wanted to first. I saw the condition of some of these dogs, and my first instinct was donate food, feed those dogs, make them better, so they're not a medical bill to people. They're actually a family member, and that's what got Neptune adopted. And as of course, I'm like such an easy mark for dogs. We were going to start out with 6, then it got to 10, and 16, and 26. So, at 26, I'm feeding just about every dog in the shelter, and I set up a specific protocol for how those dogs were going to be fed, what was going to be measured. It was this amount of food, you weigh the stool, you estimate the amount of, the amount of water they drink, you kind of estimate over the course of the day how much waste product they've expelled. And then once a week, when I would deliver food for these dogs, I could, look at the condition of the dogs and see what changed. And it's also pretty easy to tell when somebody at the shelter was cheating with a dog. You'd see, instead of a small stool, a big stool. Instead of a stool with no smell, you get a really stinky smell, or you get dog breath, which would have gone away. So we literally posted signs on each of those dogs' cages with a very polite but a stern warning not to feed the dogs anything else because they were part of the study. The problem that I literally ran into is dogs were getting adopted that had been there for 3, 4, 5 years. Neptune had been there for 7 years. And everybody who walked past her cage was looking at a medical bill. And now people were seeing healthy, active, loving dogs that they could now imagine in their family. So I actually had to convince the last family to wait 2 weeks so that I could finish with enough dogs in the study to complete animal feeding trials. And that's a great thing to have happen, but I was kind of in a panic that the dogs were getting adopted at such a rate that I couldn't afford to start it over again. And we have, each one is its own case study, but people, when they look at pictures, can't believe it's the same dog, and they can't believe that the change happened so quickly. And I think that's why people who are in the raw pet food industry love it so much, because they can solve a dog's problems very quickly and see that benefit and kind of get a rush of endorphins, and serotonin, because they know they did something amazing in a very short period of time.
And you know that you're giving the dog, and in a lot of cases, cats, you're giving them the best chance of life. With most kibbles, with the garbage that's in there, it's just the same thing as feeding a human fast food every day for 3 meals. It just doesn't make sense. So, and it's funny because you both see it I'm sure you see it at the farmers market. Here you're in a place where everything's fresh, and so you can't really look around and go, oh well, there's a hamburger stand over there and a pizza stand there. It's all pretty much fresh. You're going to probably get some kettle corn or something like that, but for the most part, everything's organic. Everything's got its right place. It's not artificially tainted and ruined. And you think to yourself, all these people are coming here to actually buy food to best suit their needs and their health. So what a smart thing to be there to actually look at the dogs and cats, because you don't really see that too often.
Well, yeah,
you really don't.
Is when, a customer will start their dog on the food and they see such positive changes, and then they realize the quality of the products that they're feeding their dog. And, our chickens, our cows, the deer, they're all grass-fed, grass-finished. And then it makes them reevaluate what they're eating themselves and how much money they're spending on their own food. So oftentimes you'll find that they change their eating habits too, which is just another great thing that comes from switching to a raw diet.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of unique, and it's partly bizarre when it really comes down to it. Now, you've mentioned chicken, and we've talked vaguely about beef, but there is that myth. And I always try to tell people, yes, dogs do have allergies. And I wanted to hear from both of you, because I'm sure you're asked all the time, well, for some reason, I have my dog on chicken and it's still scratching. I'm still having these issues. So I wanted to kind of put to rest the fact that this myth isn't a myth. It's actually proven and true.
Well, so by the time somebody gets to us, because I'm going to preface that answer a little bit. By the time somebody gets to us, their dog on average has been given 3 antibiotics, an antifungal, and usually a fungicide for ears or skin issues. A steroid like prednisone, which suppresses the immune system, all sorts of different shampoos and topical treatments to try to battle it from the outside. And I mean, if you look under anybody's counter who's a dog owner, they have 3 or 4, easily different flavored, smelling shampoos. And they're kind of at a dead end. They haven't been helped by medicine. And, they've tried all these different foods. They've tried a prescription diet, and they're literally at a loss. And then they hear this guy that owns this company, or they hear, Dakota say, we guarantee we can fix that. They've heard it. And I do not expect them to believe me when I say it. So I wanted to find a way beyond just being the next step that was going to fail them. So we decided, my wife and I decided very early on, just give money back guarantees unconditionally on the food. And literally, if somebody was on the fence, give them the food and say, just try it. And nobody else has ever offered them a money back guarantee. You're certainly not going to get that from a veterinarian or from, anybody who sells you a solution to it if it doesn't work. And then all of a sudden they're saying, so this guy's willing to give me my money back no matter how much I spend if this doesn't work? I wonder why that is. Well, it's either he's not that bright, or maybe it does work. So when they start seeing those immediate results, they get it, and they start to develop that trust back. But another thing that we hear from the customers is, I can't feed my dog chicken, or I can't feed my dog beef because they have allergies to those animals. And proteins, for the most part, are hypoallergenic. So you can't get, or you can't literally have a beef allergy. What you have a reaction to, specifically in dogs, are starches. Their bodies can't process them efficiently. They actually ferment in their gut and cause all these things that we know are allergies. So in one experiment, of course, my dog now he's like my poor test case. I tried different things out on him. We took chicken that had been raised in a commercial feed operation, and just like cattle in a feedlot, they're fed diets of corn. And so the chicken that we use is never fed corn or soy. The beef that we get is all grass-fed, grass-finished. And the deer are all eating wild grasses, plants, and berries. So they never get commercialized starches or commercial feeds. So dogs, if the people trust me enough, when their dog is switched to our chicken, amazingly, the dog is not allergic to chicken anymore. And if you look at the basis for allergy tests, what they're really looking for are the presence of corn starches in the animal. So if your dog is allergic to chicken, they're almost automatically going to be allergic to beef in those test results. So that's the unique combination we hear is, my dog's allergic to chicken and beef, they can't eat those proteins. I know that, yeah, if you're feeding your chicken from a feedlot, then you're absolutely standing a high percentage that your dog might exhibit an allergic reaction. But if it's an organic bird being fed a starching, corn-free, soy-free diet, it's not going to happen. And we hear that about 50% of the time from pet owners, and I don't think, unless the owner cheated, we may have had 1 or 2 owners that just said their dog was still showing allergic reactions. But for the vast majority, thousands of dogs, surprisingly, they're just not allergic anymore.
And see, that's interesting, because honestly, I can see exactly what you're saying. because, I may live in a part of the country that's supposedly, and I use air quotes, kind of farmland. We don't really have a lot of that here. So we rely on our local stores, and it's just any kind of chicken from there. It's just our older Akita will just start scratching. So I can see exactly what you're saying. By that full description, it makes more sense. Because she's fine when she eats anything to do with turkey or anything else. She just cannot handle the store-bought chicken. And we always buy what is classified as organic and cage-free. But you know what? That makes some sense, and I completely see it. So we just take chicken out of her diet, and she's fine. But our other Akita,
and even if it's organic chicken, even if it's organic chicken, that doesn't mean that the chicken hasn't been fed corn.
Right.
So we use Mary's chicken from the Pittman family in California, and they specifically have birds that are corn and soy free, and it's the same birds that some select grocery stores sell. The reason that is the only product that we import from outside of Hawaii, because land here is so expensive. We have a little chicken startup that we help get funding. We guarantee purchasing from them. But once you hit about 600 birds and you decide to go beyond that, you now need to be a USDA inspected farm, which means a USDA inspector, an office for the inspector, a dedicated bathroom to the inspector, and you've got to pay for the inspector. So now, instead of, just incrementally raising a little extra birds, you've got to raise, 10, 12,000 now just to break even. And if you don't have the land for them to, free range and eat what's in a pasture, then you've got to supplement their feeds, and it's usually supplemented with a corn product, which we can't use. So it's a real dilemma here in Hawaii, and I think the big thing that we do have growing for us is all of our ranchers are really grass farmers. We have a lot of rain, we have incredible soil, so the grass, unless we have a drought, the grass is easy and very nutritious. And I know Dakota's seen that same thing when both from the calls that she takes and our customers at farmers markets.
It makes all the sense in the world. I mean, I never really thought about it. I never put the two together. I just have ultimately alleviated it from her diet, from Katana's diet, and never really thought. So you've actually given me something to think. But as I always say, I'm always the first listener to all of these, and just lucky to interact. So you've given me a great deal to think about, and on top of it, more to actually explain to different people who come in and ask about nutrition. So I really have to thank you for that one.
And Dakota, you hear about this, right, at farmers markets and from customers all the time, right?
Oh, yeah, all the time. I mean, usually chicken is one of the first blends that I will recommend to a customer when first starting their dog on a raw diet. The beef and the venison can be a little rich, especially for dogs with sensitive stomachs. So when you're first transitioning over, chicken is a very easy protein to start with. And I would say at least 1/3 of our new customers are hesitant to start with a chicken. But, they either have large dogs or they're on, a budget as well, and chicken is going to be a little bit more affordable. And I can almost guarantee them if they try our chicken, their dog's going to do great on it. So they are very hesitant and nervous. But just like everything that Gary said, if you're feeding the dogs, they can't break down, they can't digest corn, grain, and starch. So even though you're not directly feeding your dog those ingredients, if you're feeding your dog a chicken that has been eating those ingredients, it's going to have the same effect. So a lot of the time people don't understand that. So it's very important to explain that I remember Gary had told me one time he had stopped at Costco and grabbed, a rotisserie chicken and gave some to his dog, and his dog immediately started shedding within the first couple of days. And, those birds are fed corn and grain and starch, and it's really the same thing with our diets as well. It just comes down to the quality of the products that you're eating. So it's worth it to get organic, grass-fed, and grass-finished, because if we were to be using a lower grade quality products, they wouldn't be working for any of our customers' dogs.
And it's funny because we're always saying how we're conscientious about what we eat, but I'll tell you, those Costco chickens and even the Walmart ones, they're so darn delicious. And I know that they're not that good for us, but boy, they're good. Let's go on.
Well, it's the same thing with McDonald's. You love McDonald's, just like how you can compare McDonald's to kibble, but it's absolutely horrible for you. So when you switch over, to something a little bit healthier, even though it may not be as yummy, you're going to thrive. You're going to do so much better.
I actually avoid McDonald's as much as possible. I mean, I probably drink more than I actually eat McDonald's, and I don't drink, so go figure that one. I look at it and go, oh gosh, as a kid, I loved this. It was the greatest. As an adult, I'm like, I don't want it. Please don't make me eat this. So, I always love the soapbox moment. I always like to hear what gets people, standing on the soapbox saying, hey, you know what, this is how to do it, whether it's nutrition, it's me inside a big box store going, this kibble is garbage. But I always love to hear other people's soapbox moments. So I'm going to start with Dakota, hear your soapbox moment, because I'm pretty sure being in the public as much as you are, you probably have a go-to. And I'm curious what your go-to moment is for a soapbox moment.
There could be many. That's a hard one. I would like to pass this question to Gary first and see.
I see. That's fair. All right. Well, Gary, what is your soapbox moment?
Oh, I've got a couple soapbox moments, but I tend to have more controversial soapbox moments than most. So I think my biggest soapbox moment is if I'm looking at a dog and I'm looking at their physical condition, I'm looking at their blood work, and I see that the dog is in perfect health. Their blood work couldn't be more perfect. Their fur is beautiful. And then somebody says, but you need to take your dog off raw food because it's dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
It can, the pathogens can kill your dog. There's salmonella, there's E. coli. So there's this fear-mongering that goes on. And so there are incredible veterinarians, and there are veterinarians that look at symptoms and prescribe medications or prescription foods.
Mm-hmm.
And my background has always been, if something looks weird, in other words, here's this dog, I saw it 2 years ago, I saw it last year, and now all of a sudden, its blood work is perfect, its cholesterol is normal, I've never seen a dog in more amazing condition. What are you doing differently? And my pet parents will say, we started feeding our dog raw food. So if I'm science-based, which I try to be, I say, well, gosh, I wonder what it is about raw food that caused this change. What I typically see from others is, no, you need to stop feeding your dog raw food, and completely disregarding the physical characteristics of the dog and the blood work, the scientific results of the dog, completely dismissing those and saying, no, you need to switch, even though what you're, and these are the words they don't say, even though what you're doing is working wonderfully, you need to switch because of the hazards or because of, something else. And they, it's that lack of asking why and doing more research, or at least asking the question why, and maybe reading an article or two that is objective. That, to me, is when we get the calls from the customers that say, oh my God, my vet has told me to take my dog off raw food. What do I do? What do I tell my vet? Or I'm going to visit my vet. What do I tell them about raw food? You shouldn't be scared of your veterinarian. You shouldn't. Vets do amazing work. If my dog breaks his pelvis or has an enlarged spleen, I'm not going to immediately turn to nutrition and try to solve it. My dog's going to the vet, and my dog's getting an x-ray, and my dog's going to have surgery. I get that. But treating symptoms without clearly understanding the underlying basis for what caused the symptom is my biggest frustration. And I think that's why when we look at foods that have all these vitamins, synthetic vitamins added back to them, we don't question why. And we see that on any food that's been high pressure pasteurized. We see that on food that has been irradiated, or we see that on foods that have undergone a kill step for bacteria, which kills both good and bad, instead of an inhibitory method like sourcing from the right places that have minimal chance at pathogenic infection, as opposed to feedlots, which have the highest potential for pathogenic infections. So, as you can tell, yes, this is my soapbox, and I could stand up on it for a good solid 8 hours and talk, but I will take my cue and step down from it at this point. But that's, it's understanding why, questioning why. If you're a scientific professional, at least don't just throw a fact out there or throw something out there without really understanding the basis of what you're telling your customer.
I can't disagree. I always hate the prescription diet. I look at it, I've looked at the ingredients top to bottom, and I'm like, I love how it's made by the big pet food company who is going to charge the pet parent $90, $95, $100 a bag just to feed what they should already have as ingredients in their regular stuff that they sell in the stores. It drives me absolutely insane. I'm just, when people say, well, I'm on this prescription dog food, I pretty much laugh and go, yeah, that should have been the ingredients to start with. Dakota, your turn to step up on the soapbox and let us know what drives you nuts in this conversation.
I am going to have to agree with Gary 100%. So what can be so frustrating sometimes is when we have, customers start on our food and their dogs are doing great. The allergies are going away. They may be a little worried, and we get a few extra questions, and we've helped them along the way, and they're getting to a point where they're noticing changes and everything's going great. And then you get this call or you get this email, and they have gone to their vet and they're so afraid now, and they want to take their dog off of the raw food and basically erase all of the progress that we've just made. And then they are recommended to purchase a food that's in their vet's office. And it's so beyond frustrating because kibble, dry food, at best it's between 45 and 50% absorbable. So you're selling your patient or your customer a bag of food that your dog can only digest 45 to 50%. I mean, it's to me, such a joke when you look at it like that. So it can be very frustrating, and it's hard because it comes back to the point of, customers are already very, very hesitant to start their dogs on raw food. And, they're starting to get to a comfortable level. We've built our relationship with them, and their dog, is doing great. And then one comment from a vet can erase all of that. So it can be very, very frustrating. That's going to have to be my number one frustration. Yeah.
I completely agree with it. I mean, I get it. You have DVM at the end of your name, so it gives you some kind of ability to discourage and discredit things. But the reality is, I hate it. You walk into some veterinarian clinics and it has bag after bag of not only the upper end garbage, but then they talk about the other products that are available under prescription, and it's just like, really? Seriously? I mean, you're selling bags of lies. And how can I trust you when I know better? And I've noticed, and of course, by doing this podcast, I've gone into different veterinary clinics, and I'll just say, so, XYZ, and they just kind of walk away because they know that there's not going to be a way of BSing me through this. But unfortunately, with the internet, with big pet food, and with veterinarians who are willing to sell those lies, it's become so difficult to show people the facts and the statistics and the risk to reward. I just don't get the discouraging from different veterinarians. Stay holistic, stay on the science. You know what's in front of you. You can see it. You can look right in the blood work. It's the same thing with over-vaccination. You know with the titer. You know it's not needed. But yet, they're still willing to pump this stuff in. They're still willing to go through all this and harm the dogs with really zero thought in their process. That bothers me. And you both see this all the time. And it's almost like an uphill battle.
And another thing as well, too. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm going to back up just a second because so there are two things that I want to be a little more descriptive of. First, Costco, and I don't own stock in Costco. We're not in Costco. But Costco, over the past 2 or 3 years, has come a very long way towards carrying more organic foods, more organic, higher quality meats. They are now looking at sourcing of even their fish, their salmon. They're looking for wild salmon instead of farmed salmon. Now, they do offer grades of choices, but, even Safeway. I remember walking into a Safeway store, a big box store owned by Albertsons, and the entire produce section had kind of been transformed. There was now a big section of organic produce and vegetables that literally wasn't there 2 days before. So I think the trend is, because of consumer demand, is becoming a little more pervasive and acceptable in the marketplace, because they know that the consumer, A, is looking for it, and B, it's really not that much more expensive. And then the second thing is with veterinarians get about, on average, 1 semester hour in animal nutrition training covering 7 species. They are trained by dog food manufacturers. I don't think anybody goes into the veterinary field because they're just looking for wads of cash. I mean, it's because they love animals, and that's why they're doing what they do. But just like somebody watching TV, you get barraged with things. You get barraged with marketing. You go into a grocery store and you see on the pet food labels all of these claims. And I don't think vets are any different than us. They get told the same things, they hear the same things, they get education on the same things, and they're surrounded by their peers who are told exactly the same thing. So you've really got to be a brave vet to put yourself out there as a holistic vet supporting raw, because not many people in that field are going to support you. Even the American Medical Veterinary Association has taken a formal stance against raw food. So veterinarians who have done that have been ostracized and attacked. Much like, doctors who have said something controversial or did something controversial in their research that didn't support the mainstream. So I know they're out there and I know they've educated themselves. I just think they're afraid at what's going to come back. Kind of like little raw dog food manufacturers, we start talking on podcasts like this and there are potential repercussions from it. So sometimes it's tough being brave, and I don't consider myself being brave. I just want to be honest. And there's a potential that, when you're out there saying something that's honest, that somebody's not going to like that opinion. If you don't believe that, just post it on Facebook and wait 5 minutes.
Well, I always say this is the podcast that Big Pet Food does not want you to hear. And there's actual proof to that. I mean, they've used different episodes in court cases saying that a person was on this podcast and was going to sway the decision of a specific trial, which obviously was tossed. But, yes, there is definitely a lot of opinions, but typically, you pull up the PFI episode, you pull up different episodes of different categories and subject matter in this field, and you can see it. You can see that there is definitely, with AFCO and PFI and even down to the FDA, who will not talk to anybody and go on record. Or even the veterinarians who are, and there is a lot that are holistic now and are stepping up and saying, you know what, that old guard is just, it's a thing of the past. We refuse to do so. And, they are champions. They are guardians that are coming out. It's a great deal of subject matter that, honestly, it's become more normal. And yes, you're right. There are a lot of different markets that are going with the organic. The thing that I've noticed is that being in the Midwest, it is the last to get anything. You're going to see it on the West Coast. You're going to see it on the East Coast. In the Midwest, unless you're in places like trendy parts of Texas, Chicago, you're not going to really see it here, which drives me nuts. Another thing that I always kind of get a little shocked about is ugly vegetables. Why they don't just sell them for a little bit less. I guarantee people would buy them because it wouldn't have any difference whether there's a little disformity in a potato or a carrot. People really don't care. There's more waste of good vegetables that are out there that drives me nuts. But again, many soapbox moments that I can get on and many subject matters that I will just go to town with. And, I always commend all these different, big box stores that just say, hey, look, you know what, we're gonna shift out of the old ways and come into the new ways.
So I'm going to ask Dakota, what do I always say about ugly vegetables?
Oh, what do you say about ugly vegetables? I don't know, but I completely agree with the ugly vegetables, as you can use them for so many different things, and it's still a vegetable. So I completely agree with you on that. What do you say about that, Gary?
Well, what I say about it, and I tell the farmers this, and so farmers don't spend any less money or effort to raise an ugly vegetable. And consumers want to see, and grocery stores want to see, perfect vegetables in a grocery store. And even if I go spend the money to buy, organic Fuji apples, which we don't grow any apples here, I don't want an apple that has, a brown squishy spot on it. But what I fail to remind myself is that if there's a bug hole in a kale leaf, the bug had a choice. So it's, there's the theory that, the bugs are going after the weaker vegetables, but what's actually occurring is the bugs are smarter than we are, and they're going to go after the more nutritious vegetable. So I will literally only feed my family, what farmers call their seconds, or the ones with bug holes that aren't quite as pretty, because I know they're of generally higher nutritional value. And that's what we purchase. We use 4% of organic green vegetables in our food, so they're partially juiced, and then we put the plant fiber back. But that's our way, one of our ways of supporting local organic vegetable farmers is they have no other outlet to sell those things. They're probably just gonna, throw them in the compost pile. We buy them and we pay full market price for them. So whatever they're at the farmer's market, selling their, beautiful, perfect greens for, that's the price we're going to pay. And I want their seconds because I want those farmers to stay in business and not throw half their profits into a compost pile.
I don't think that people would, I really honestly don't believe that the consumer is going to be upset that a carrot is misformed, deformed a little bit. I mean, we're just talking about maybe there's a little bit more water in the soil. There's something that just, changed it by a little bit. It's not going to change the value and the properties that are in this vegetable. It's kind of drives me nuts. I mean, I'm like, it's just, big pet, stores. I was going to say pet food. But big stores that are actually, the markets, they're saying, no, it has to be perfect or nobody will buy it. I think that people would buy it. I think that I would buy it. For one, I like the fact that it's not, in air quotes again, perfect. And I always wonder the same thing, and as you said, the waste per just, I would not even go with year, the one crop of waste is enough to save so much of hunger. We could put hunger to such a minimal amount by using all of these vegetables or bugs, which is another subject matter. But there's so many things that we waste, and I just don't get it. It's not just the U.S., it's not Canada, it's not Europe, it's the world. And I think it's really down to the market saying, oh no, people won't buy it. And I think a lot of people are in that position where they say, you know what, you're right, I wouldn't buy it. No, I think that they would. And I think that big pet food should be the ones buying a lot of this as well. Can you imagine if they were actually putting the real vegetables, not some garbage, in their food and get the starches out, and they were putting pure vegetables and using what we consider to be ugly vegetables in their food? How much better their foods would be, and the farmers would sell it at such a low cost, because again, it is, like you said, going into their fields, it's just being tossed around in compost, and it's trashed. And for what reason? It's perfectly good.
Yep, and changing the world is on our to-do list, and once we save all the dogs, we will start working on ugly vegetables.
I'll join you on that one. Well, let's go into your product line. Now, we're kind of an hour into this, which I could go probably another 4 or 5 hours, but unfortunately, with podcast bandwidth, it only allows me so much time. So I wanted to make sure to give your actual product line its due, and that is, I'm going to start with wild venison and just kind of give us a little bit of descriptions on each one so that everybody understands what it is and has more of that appetite to want it. And I'll tell you, being that it's a little bit later in my time, I'm looking at some of these things going, I could have any one of these for dinner tonight, and it sounds delicious. Let's go with wild venison. Yeah, you're already there thinking, yeah, maybe for lunch that would be good.
I think she's laughing because we have a lot of customers who say that, and I hope that they recognize it's dog food, not human food. But yeah, it is that high of a quality. Hawaii again is unique because King Kamehameha, I think it was the first, had this. People would bring him gifts, and one of the things that he was gifted were 7 deer, axis deer, and he wasn't, for whatever reason, really impressed with them, so he had them sent over to Maui. And with no natural predator, deers, much like rabbits, multiply. And at some point, deer were sent to Molokai and deers were sent to Lanai. So they became an invasive species in Hawaii. And it's so much so that the estimates have it that if we were to be able to harvest 1 million pounds a year, that we would only be near equilibrium in terms of births versus the amount we were harvesting. So it's very significant. And so we work with conservation groups to help at least partially control that invasive species. And it is now its own species. It's less than 1% body fat in it. And actually, I think it was, now that I'm looking up the information, it was actually 8 axis deer that were introduced on my birthday, January 19th, but back in 1868. And I was wrong. It was on Molokai, not Maui. So, but nonetheless, they and 2 other species, which we don't currently make food with, are mouflon sheep and Ibex mountain goat. Those as well are now considered invasive species. So cattle ranchers want them gone. They want them eradicated. And the Ibex mountain goat and the mouflon sheep are both big game animals. So they become a food source for locals, but represent a problem with regard to the amount of grass-fed, grass-finished beef that our ranchers can produce. So that's what one of the flavors that we're using in our food, and it is highly prized by restaurants. And we have a conservation group on Maui that actually harvests and sends that venison all over the world.
And venison is I don't actually eat meat, so I've only heard, but venison can be kind of a rich type of a protein, and a meat is, again, not actually ever having it. I'm going to kind of, steer to you guys for kind of the insight on that particular meat, because I'm pretty sure people are like, oh my gosh, it's the greatest ever, you should eat it. Well, it's just not on my different menus, but isn't it a rich type of meat?
It is not fat rich. It is flavor rich. So it does have the gamey smell of a wild animal, but it's actually more mellow in smell and flavor than deer that you would find on the mainland, like white-tailed deer and others. And I think Dakota, I feed it to my dog very occasionally, but my dog usually gets whatever we happen to have the most of in our freezer. But Dakota, do you feed our venison to your dog on occasion? I think you do.
I do. I feed him the venison, and I also feed my cat the venison. And, I can tell you my cat goes crazy for it. She whines more than my dog. My dog will eat anything. He loves it all. But my cat, she just goes crazy for it. She loves it. It's the only flavor, the only protein she will eat. She's been on the food for at least 4 years now. I can tell you her coat, her teeth, everything is amazing. She does really well on it. But what I hear from our customers is their dogs love the venison. It is significantly lower in fat compared to all of our other blends, so that's something to keep in mind as well, depending on the dog. But the animals, the dogs especially, they go crazy for the venison.
And I can actually see where, being that rich flavor, I can see where a cat would just go completely nuts. I can completely see that. Sounds absolutely like something that my cats would just be like, oh boy, mine are unfortunately the most spoiled cats on the planet, so they'd probably like, well, about time.
I don't think you're alone having spoiled animals. I think lots of people are in your category.
Yeah, no, I mean that's what's great, is that they're no longer considered animals. They are family members. I mean, we have our 9-year-old daughter who, she's grown up with animals, and it's almost like they're little siblings to her, and they're treated so well, and it's just like she is, and I can't imagine treating them any differently than a human. And of course, by the way that they act, I think that they're spoiled humans, but that's what it is. Well, let's go into grass-fed beef, organic chicken, which we had talked a little bit about, which also you have the grass-fed beef and organic chicken blend. And then I think we kind of touched on the wild Hawaiian venison nuggets, but we'll kind of, just go through a little bit of these and just take us through it. And I'm actually thinking, boy, am I hungry all of a sudden.
So as you see on our website, we have a few different sizes of our products available. So we make patties. We have an amazing food forming machine, so we are able to make our food in any shape and size. So we make patties that look like a hamburger patty, and those are really ideal for dogs maybe 20 pounds and up. Our serving size, half of a pound, is the size of the patty, which is enough for around 40 pounds of dog per day. So then you'll notice we have the nuggets, and the nuggets are going to be the exact same blend of the patties. So, for example, the venison patties and the venison nuggets are the exact same blend, but like I said, we have the food forming machine, so we can make it in any shape and size. So say, for example, if you have a small 5-pound dog, you don't have to worry about portioning down that large patty. The nuggets are really great for smaller dogs. So it's not that it's a different blend or different ingredients. It's just a little bit more convenient if you do have a smaller dog.
Makes sense, because, again, having a 100-pound Akita and a 80-pound Akita, they're probably going to need a little bit more than, say, a Shih Tzu.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize that. I'm sure you probably hear this a lot, where it's, oh, well, I don't think I'm feeding my dog enough. And there is a ratio to how much you're supposed to feed with everything. Now, I do the 80-10-10 with ours, but, there's definitely other ratios. I find it works best for our dogs, but there's also the time that I hear people go, well, I just don't feel like I'm feeding my dog enough, and then I'll be like, okay, well, how much does your dog weigh? And then they'll say, let's just say, for instance, 80 pounds, and they're feeding only a pound and a half. It's like, yeah, you're probably going to want to boost that up. And the other part of that is that there is something called feeding too much. So getting the calculations down is definitely needed. So I'm sure you have that brought to your attention quite a lot, and I thought I would throw that one in there, especially when you said, the actual sizes change.
And that's all the time. And it's so when we did our animal feeding trials, we also calculated digestibility percentage. And our food, we found, to be 96% bioavailable or digestible to the dog.
Nice.
When we translated that to dog weight and serving size and then looked at doing a food calculator, the raw industry trend is 2 to 3% of dog weight. So if I'm talking about a 100-pound dog, I'm looking at 2 to 3 pounds of food per day. Well, for us, it's actually a pound and a half a day, because 96% of what is in our blend is whole animal. We don't take select cuts of cattle or venison or chicken. We use the whole animal. So other than head, hide, hooves, feet, feathers, and digestive tract, the whole animal gets used in our food.
Mm-hmm.
So that changes the number of calories per ounce and results in having to feed even less food using our blend. So I had a couple choices when I was thinking of building out that food calculator, because you're right, the Internet of Things, people are going to look out and see, do their research, and I need to feed my dog 2 to 3% of their body weight. And then they come to our site and it says, no, you only need to feed about 1.25 or 1.5% of your dog's body weight. So they think one of two things: either we don't know what we're talking about, or we're trying to get the cost artificially down, and then they'll figure it out on the back end, or we're just wrong. And so I opted, instead of putting a food calculator on the website, to give feeding portion sizes.
Mm-hmm.
So one of our 8-ounce patties is 40 pounds worth of dog food per day. And you would divide it into the number of servings that you would feed your dog. And yes, people look at it, and it's even smaller what they might have put in the bowl on another raw food. The dog normally is a gorger, so they'll run up to the bowl. The food's gone in 10 seconds. The dog licks the bowl and then looks up at the owner. And the owner perceives that as hunger.
Mm-hmm.
So when they say, I don't think I'm feeding my dog enough, my dog always seems hungry, Dakota and I will ask them, what does hunger look like? And if they say, well, my dog continually is licking the bowl, going back to the food bowl, looking at me, following me around everywhere I go, those are instinctive behaviors. Once you bring fresh kill, and effectively that's what you're bringing them, is raw, ground up, whole animal. To them, it's fresh kill. They can now clearly identify that A, they are not the pack leader, and B, whoever's bringing the fresh kill is. The anxiety level in the dogs go down, so the yelping and the crying when you leave the house, it's not the pack getting smaller, it's you going hunting, because every time you come back, you bring back fresh kill for us. And then the following you around is the theory that when the pack leader moves, the pack moves, because you don't want to get left behind. You become much more likely to be a victim in an attack than having and being surrounded by your entire pack. So those two behaviors people perceive as dog hunger, and that's really not the case. We tell people you judge the amount that you are feeding your dog based on their stool size and quality. So if the stool is coming out kind of white and crumbly, it means that the dog is digesting the food, and what's left are trace amounts of ground bones. So you need to feed a little bit more. If there is a lot of food coming out, your dog is just simply not digesting it, and it's because you're overfeeding. So you need to cut back a little bit. And because every dog's physiology and metabolism is different, I have an owner with a 100-pound dog who feeds 8 ounces per day, and I have a little 8-pound Tibetan Spaniel that we're fostering who, eats probably half a pound a day, or close to it. And her stool is, quite small and normal. So you don't know. You can give them a guideline, but they're used to seeing big stool, and you have to tell them that the stool size is going to shrink, and you don't need to feed them nearly as much as you've done before. And I think half of them believe this, half of them don't, but that's the hazard and the issue of having a food calculator or not having a food calculator.
Food calculators I've always found to be almost a confusion to a lot of pet parents who are new to raw feeding. It almost kind of, they think of it as a guideline, but not as a source. So it does tend to have some confusion. Now that brings up an interesting question for Dakota. Considering you're out there at the farmer's market, how many conversations per week do you have with pet parents about poop?
Oh, poop is probably the number one thing I talk about, it feels like.
Yep.
We get a lot of calls and a lot of questions, with pet parents that are concerned they're not feeding their dogs enough. Because their dogs, eat the food in 5 seconds, and then they look at them like, where's my food? And I mean, with my dog, he's been doing that since he was 6 weeks old, and he's 2.5 now, and he'll eat his food in about 2 seconds, and then he'll run around and try to steal the cat's food. And then for the next half an hour, he's licking the bowl, and sometimes I forget if I feed him or not because he's always ready to eat. If I put a whole bag of food down, he's going to eat it all until he's sick and has an upset stomach. So, the feeding amount, like Gary said, relying on the stool is so important, and especially with puppies. Puppies are a little bit more of a challenge when starting on a raw diet and knowing how much to feed because they're constantly growing and you're adjusting. So monitoring the stool is always the most helpful advice that I can give anyone in terms of, knowing if you are feeding enough. So it's very important to know, if it does look dry and crumbly, okay, I need to be feeding more, and some dogs can eat a lot more than the recommended amount, and so you have to slowly increase the food until you see that the stool is ever kind of soft and runny. So I talk about dog poop all the time.
It's a very funny and yet serious conversation to have. I mean, who as an adult, when we were kids, we never thought that we would be talking about poop as much as we do now. It's just not, something I ever thought I was going to have at least one conversation a day about. And, it's funny because, excuse me, I'm losing my voice here. The funny part for me is I talk about it to somebody and you say the word poop, and I don't know why, but it always seems to put a smile on someone's face. And it doesn't matter how old they are. They still have that little, he said poop, which I'm sure you get that too. And it's like, I'm really being serious, but how much does your dog poop? And they smile. And I don't know why. I've never figured out why. And I've never thought in my life I would spend my life talking about it, but here we are, talking about the one 4-letter word that I didn't expect to talk about ever. And why as adults...
Here's what you probably haven't said to people, and I ask this when I get that question, which is, send me a picture of your dog's poop, and I'll be happy to tell you if you need to feed more or feed less. So half the pictures on my phone are of dogs, and the other half are of dog poop. And I don't even think twice about saying it, and when I do say it, our customers don't even think twice about sending me the picture. So, yeah, maybe our other mission is to make poop a fun word again.
I think I always find it to be a fun word. I mean, I have a 9-year-old, so the word poop is still funny. I say it around her and she finds it funny, and I'm 37 and I find it funny, and, obviously I'm probably a little bit more immature than most. That's kind of where the Billy Hookman episode where if you noticed, him and I kind of had that moment where we're both kind of, we're adults, but we're kids and that have never really grown up. And that's kind of where it comes down to. Maybe that's why we love dogs and cats so much, is because we have that mentality. And I've noticed that in this industry and in this passion, majority of people who love animals are kind of like this. We find the word poop funny, and we talk about it often. And to your example of pictures, I'll even take it to another level. Our grooming salon will be, I cannot tell you how many times it does happen, but somebody will bring their dog in, they'll be talking about, my dog's really got this problem, it's got this allergy, it's got this problem, and then all of a sudden, the dog will poop, and we're able to see it physically right there, and unfortunately smell it, and we'll automatically be able to say, well, you see how that poop is like this? Yeah, it's not taking in any nutrients, there's no bone, there's no this, all the different things that are wrong, and we can use the poop that's right in front of them as examples. So I completely understand where you're coming from. Again, how many people can say they look at poop right there in front and be able to articulate exactly what's in the poop from this perspective? It's a weird world. It's a weird conversation to have with people.
We love what we do, and
yes,
people who are in this industry and get to interact with animals on a daily basis. I don't think I've met a disgruntled raw pet feeder and a manufacturer. I think you love what you do because it's not really kind of real work. You get to make hamburger patties and nuggets or whatever form it's in. You get to work with food and farmers and ranchers, and you get to play with dogs.
Right.
Stare at dog food pictures all day. So, yeah, I mean, how can that be bad?
I personally can't think of anything worse to do in life. I think this is the best luxury to have. If this is work, then you know what, I'm totally cool with it. I don't get to make food, so that's the only thing that's a differential between what we're doing. But the knowing that you're doing best for dogs and cats, it's rewarding, and that's got to be. I mean, got Dakota over there who's a champion who talks about this every week at a farmer's market, and then throughout the week on internet, whether it's emails, I'm probably guessing social media, and by phone calls. You're very fortunate to have that opportunity in life.
Me and Gary, we always talk about what our dream would be, and I mean, of course, we're living it right now, but being able to work with dogs, be around dogs, and be able to help dogs, there's nothing better than that. I would love nothing more than to have 10 to 20 acres and be able to pick up all the stray dogs I find and have just a big raw dog fest and raw dog food and dogs, and just that would be my dream. And so one day we'll get there, but we couldn't be doing anything better.
You just kind of gave me an idea for a great outdoor venue, kind of like expo where it's Raw Dog Fest. That just made me think, man, can you imagine that? Where there might be, live entertainment and a bunch of different booths and a bunch of people with their dogs. Man, that sounds like so much fun. I might just take that idea.
Just put the word Hawaii in front of it, and I think you've got it nailed.
I'm just in it just for that one reason alone. Boy, it sounds like a great vacation. I'm going to go quickly through just some of the things that you guys have, which, again, they are top quality, and that was, you have the grass-fed green tripe, which is amazing, grass-fed sliced beef liver, and you have the chicken livers, which, of course, fits so much needs. You have organic chicken blend, you have organic chicken grass-fed, beef blend, deer antler, which is great. for your dogs to chew on for so many reasons. Deer antler chews. You have ahi chips for dogs and cat treats. Beef heart jerky, which, again, I'm sure that all the dogs must go crazy for that alone. Grass-fed dehydrated liver, beef tendon chews, grass-fed beef knuckle bone, grass-fed Texas T-bone, grass-fed beef back ribs, grass-fed, which I'm going to say grass-fed every time. It seems like the word of the day, but you've got so much, and you have the chicken backs. I mean, it is just, I did not realize until I actually went on and started doing my research just how much you had in product line and how you were able to go full circle to make sure every ounce of what a dog and a cat needs. And for that, I have to commend you on both of you on your absolutely wonderful work. If you want to actually talk about any of those products and highlight anything that I had mentioned.
Dakota?
One thing that sticks out to me is our green tripe. That is a product that is that we use in our food and all of our blends of food already, and it's also a great additional supplement. So the green tripe is basically the inside of a cow's stomach. So when your dog eats any vegetables at all, it goes right through them. They can't digest anything, any nutrients, any vitamins or minerals from the vegetables. They can't break them down. So why we use the green tripe is because it's like the cow had already digested those vegetables for your dog. So the green tripe is a great probiotic. It's high in chlorophyll, help with digestive enzymes. So it is already mixed in with all of our blends of food, but if you are someone that's making your own raw food, that's a great additional supplement to add into your dog's diet and to even add in every now and then, even if you are feeding our blends of food as well. So probiotics are so helpful to us as humans and dogs as well. But I would say that's one of the most unique products that we offer. I know you can't really get that anywhere else here on the island. A lot of times you're going to see bleached tripe. So when someone actually sees green tripe, we've actually had customers say, well, I didn't even know green tripe was a thing. So that's one of the ones that really sticks out to me just because you can't get it everywhere else. And with my dog, when he was a puppy, I got him at 5 weeks old all the way until he was 9 weeks old. I fed him just the green tripe, and he did so well on it, and he loves it. And that's what we do recommend to our customers who are getting puppies and they're getting them, a little bit early. The green tripe is great to start with before you transition onto the food.
And it was funny because the tripe was what really caught my attention because it's not something that's easy to come by. And again, you had mentioned the bleach. If you can get something that's unaltered, and again, being in where I use air quotes for farmland, it is almost impossible to find it. And if you do find it, it's expensive, and you have to clean it yourself, which I don't mind the price. I mind cleaning it myself. That can be the pain in the you-know-what, in the tripe. But it's, to have all that option available and how valuable it is to a dog's essentials. And I loved how you broke it down, how the cow ingests everything. It is like having a plant-based diet in your food without having to, deal with a lot of it. So it is very valuable, very beneficial to your dogs, and absolutely a great asset to any meal. So, yes, I agree that was the one that stood out with me as well. Is there anything that
we've taken?
Go ahead.
I just want to say we've taken the extra step because there are a few companies that sell green tripe in 2 and 5 pound chubs or tubes, and I know because I processed it what it smells like when it's raw and fresh. So what we've done is we package it in a 8-foot long, 2-inch diameter tube, freeze it, and then we bandsaw it into 1-inch discs. So when we freeze the package, it is 16 1-ounce discs. So the consumer can take out one disc, frozen, put it in the dog's bowl, zip the package back up, put it in the freezer. It thaws very quickly. Not that the dog cares. They'll eat it completely frozen. And it becomes almost a painless experience for the customer. And the dog is getting the benefit of probiotics, digestive enzymes, and the broken down grass, which is pure chlorophyll, and just a little bit of plant fiber. I did get an email from a customer last night that they were told by the vet stop feeding green tripe to their dog because they did stool tests and they found a parasite and 2 different bacteria. And I knew from the ones that they had listed that the reason that the dogs were showing that bacteria and that parasite were not from the green tripe, but from eating dog or cat poop, because it's only a fecal oral transmission. So, when you have a professional telling somebody, again, to stop feeding something because there's this bacteria and this, parasite in your dog's stool, it doesn't come from our product. It comes from their dog going out and eating another dog's poop. So, it's an educational thing. It's not understanding what is out there and the benefits of it, rather instill fear in the customer and tell them to stop what they're doing because they don't understand the results that they're measuring.
And there was
soapbox moment.
No,
do it again.
I love the soapbox moment. That's why I've always brought up the soapbox moment because I've heard it in so many times where it's like, I really don't have a soapbox moment. Some people will say, and then all of a sudden, halfway along, they are just right there. And I love it because people don't realize that, you're passionate about something, and that's what this is all about your passion, about what really gets you excited, which is nutrition. I'm completely with you on that. Well, unfortunately, we are winding down on time, which, as I always say, it's the hardest part about this podcast for me is that I can do this all day, but it only allows me so much time. So, with that said, first, with Dakota, where are you going to be in, well, it's September right now, so where are you going to be possibly for different outings that you're going to be at farmers markets, or how can people, find you?
So you can go to our website, rawdoghawaii.com. You can order directly from our website and have it delivered. You can also order and pick up at either one of our farmers markets. If you go to our website, rawdoghawaii.com, you can click on locations. You'll see that we have around 10 retailers on the island that carry our products, and we have a few retailers on the outer islands as well. So you have a lot of different options, but every Saturday we are at the Pearl Ridge Open Market. That is from 8 in the morning until noon. And every Sunday we are at Kailua Elementary School from 8:30 in the morning until noon, and we have all of our products with us there available.
And I'm sure, Gary, you're all about different places or ways that people probably contact you, so I want to make sure to give you that option to throw that out there for everybody.
So we are going to be looking and be very close to expanding to the mainland. We've already done some due diligence and have looked at a couple different site locations, because when our customers do leave, we have a lot of military customers. Everybody wants to know where they can get our food. So New York is a possibility. California, Nevada, and Texas are all possibilities for manufacturing locations, and we very likely will be opening one of those before the end of the year. But I can always be reached through support@rawdoghawaii.com, or you can call our main number and get in touch with me. And I'll even be so brave as to give out my email address, which is gary@rawdoghawaii.com.
And there you go. Well, thank you very much, both Gary and Dakota, for being on the podcast. It has honestly been a blast being able to talk to both of you. I've learned a lot, and it's always fun to talk to two people who are as passionate about a subject that I am. So thank you very much for being on. And come back anytime you want. Just let me know, and I'll make the time, and we can sit down and do this again.
Well, thank you so much for having us.
We'd love to do it, and but it's going to have to be from Hawaii.
Well, I can figure out how to pull that off. Well, I'm Chris Green. Have a pet-tastic week. Bye-bye, everybody.
Okay, gotta go in my bedtime.